What does the perfect life look like? You know, throughout history, human beings have been pursuing this thought of the perfect life. For some, it looks like a mountain retreat. For some, it looks like a tropical island. For some people, that includes a whole heap of technology. For others, it includes family and loved ones being surrounded by them. For some, it's food. For some, it's... We all have a different idea of what the perfect life would look like. And within each of us, there are drives, there are needs, there are things that motivate our behaviour. In the study of psychology, we find a lot of research done on what drives human beings and what is motivating a lot of our behaviour. You may have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In that he states that there are 5 levels of motivators that drive our behaviour. Now, most people would say this is a little flawed. They've moved on from this for a few reasons. Some would argue it's not so much a hierarchy. It's not like you can't move on to level 2 before you've completed level 1. And others would say there's a lot more than 5 and it needs to be a lot more nuanced. But let me give you Maslow's hierarchy of needs. First of all, physiological needs, things like food, water and sleep, things that our body basically just needs. That, you know, you come to the end of a long day, your body's telling you sleep, sleep, sleep. It drives you and motivates your behaviour. Safety needs, things like shelter and a general sense of being protected from danger are things that motivate us, that strive us, that we strive for. Third, belongingness needs. I like that word, don't you? Belongingness. Belongingness needs. To be part of a group, to feel the love of another, and to be able to love another. Drives our behaviour all the time, doesn't it? Fourthly, self-esteem. To feel good about yourself, about your abilities and your character, to feel that you're at peace with yourself, that you know yourself, that you understand yourself, that you're happy with yourself. This drives a lot of our behaviour too. And lastly, Maslow would state that the greatest need that would motivate our behaviour is self-actualisation. And that's actually to fulfil our potential in life, that we wouldn't feel like we've wasted our life, that we're contributing, making a difference, impacting the world around us and being all that we can be. I think as we go down that list, you can connect with most of those. You can look at how in your life you are trying to make the best life you can. You're pursuing these things. But I'd like to propose something this morning. I'd like to propose that regardless of all the human striving that has taken place throughout history, regardless of the numerous ways that people try to live the perfect life, that they try to fulfill all those basic human needs, those things that drive our behaviour so often, of all the attempts, of all the efforts, of all the ideas, of all the ways we can do that, there's only one person who knows how to bring true fulfilment, true contentment, who knows how to bring life to its fullest to all people. Any guesses as to who that might be? That person is God. God alone knows us. He knows this world. He knows how to get the best out of it. And so to do that, we're going to look at Genesis 1 to 2. Genesis 1 to 2, a beautiful section of Scripture. Just an exquisite story here, right at the very beginning of the Bible, that describes the creation of the heavens and the earth. In fact, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, is how it begins. And it is a beautiful, beautiful story. It basically follows a very simple pattern. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning, there was nothing. There were no heavens, there were no earth. There was simply God. And God, simply through his spoken word, says, let there be, and bam, it's there. Let there be sun, moon, stars. Let there be light. Let there be land and water. Let there be creatures that fill the ocean. Let there be birds in the sky. Let there be animals that walk upon the earth. And finally, let there be animals. Finally, let there be human beings. Let me make something in my image. And God speaks, let there be, and bam, there it is. It is a very simple story. It is a beautiful story of how God brings all things into being. Now I want to do a bit of a fact check here, because of recent times there's been a lot of criticism of the creation account narrative here in the book of Genesis. Lots of critics of the Bible and those who would look to tear down the Christian faith will look at this account in Genesis and will make an argument that sounds something like this. The Hebrews, the Israelites, as they were wandering around the desert, Moses, as was penning down the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, as he was wandering around, there were numerous other stories. There was lots of other myths and legends and creation accounts that existed in the world around him. And so the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Egyptians all had their stories written on tablets, in caves, on pyramid walls, all around the place. And so as Moses was writing his account of the creation narrative, as he was describing how the heavens and the earth came into being, the argument will say, well, Moses was really just copying the stories from other nations. There's nothing really different or significant about this account as compared to the others. By saying that, they're hoping to say, look, this isn't inspired scripture from God. This is nothing new. Other cultures had similar stories. And so what if they've got one? It's just like all the rest. But a bit of time for a fact check. Is that right? Is that correct? Well, if we go back and look at ancient Near Eastern accounts of creation, we find numerous examples, and absolutely it is true that lots of civilizations, ancient civilizations, even modern ones, we ourselves, don't we? You go to a classroom today in a high school and they're going to have a creation account, aren't they? How the heavens and the earth came into being. We all are seeking an answer to that question, and we all try and make one. And so it's no surprise that other cultures, other people have a story that describes it. But are they the same? Are they similar? Well, if we go into a little bit of detail and look at that, for example, the Babylonian Enuma Elish, which was a story found in a cave written on a number of tablets, which they were able to look at. And in it's a myth where the gods are birthed out of swirling waters. So already there is something there. That there is this swirling water. We don't know where that comes from or what it is, but from the swirling waters, the gods were born. Numerous gods. So we're talking about a polytheistic worldview with multiple gods, not just a monotheistic god like the Hebrews, which divided into fresh water, becoming the god of Apsu, and salty water, becoming the goddess of Tiamat. Now, from these two came a host of younger gods. And the younger gods decided that they would rebel because the noise that the younger gods made upset Apsu. So Apsu went to war with them, but the younger gods killed Apsu. And Tiamat, who was absolutely distraught that their counter god, one of the first primal two gods, was killed by the younger gods, that Tiamat goes to war with them, and they put forward their champion of the younger gods, Marduk. And so they fight. Marduk wins and creates mankind from the blood of the god Quingui, who is blamed for the conflict and so is executed. That's their account. Now, we're talking about the origin of things, we're talking about gods, we're talking about human beings coming into being. But beyond that, I fail to see how there is anything similar to the story. Granted that they're talking about how things came into being, but how they come into being, very different, isn't it? How about the Mesopotamian Hyksos epic. Now, it tells a story of the Sumerian gods, the 7 great Anuna gods, and the lesser, the Igigi gods. The lesser gods were being burdened with the work and decided to rebel. So, that's a great start to it, isn't it? No description of where these gods come from, just the greater gods, the lesser gods, and the greater gods are treating the lesser gods like slaves. So they decide to rebel. The lesser gods being burdened. Before the battle, a peaceful solution is proposed, and they say, hey, why don't we create man to do all the work? They agree to this and slaughter the god Awi Ilu and mix his flesh and blood with clay to make man. Humans increase and their noise disturbs the god Enlil, as humans do. I've got 4 little humans running around my place and their noise annoys me. And so Enlil decides to destroy all humanity with a flood. The god Enki warns Atrahasis, the hero of the story, who builds a boat to escape the flood. He and his family and the animals enter the boat, seal the door, surviving the storm and the flood. After 7 days, the flood ends and Atrahasis exits the boat and offers sacrifices to the gods. While Enlil is initially furious with Enki for thwarting his plans, they eventually agree to control humans in other ways. Now, interesting here, isn't it? I mean, you immediately think, oh, that's the Noah story, isn't it? Now, is it any coincidence that ancient civilizations are writing about an event that took place in real history, a universal worldwide flood? No surprise to me. But besides the flood section of that, we're focusing just on the creation narrative here about how things came to being. I mean, you've got gods that just appear out of nowhere. You've got inequality. You've got gods being treated like slaves, and humans are created to be slaves to the gods. It sounds nothing like the Hebrew story. In fact, if we come back now to the Hebrew story in Genesis, we find just a beautiful, beautiful story. Here we have God who is pre-existent. There's no swirling waters. There's nothing that brought him into being. So he is just the God who always has been, the eternal God. And he sets out to create a world. He says, let there be. And purely through his spoken word, purely as an act of will, God creates something from nothing. There's no sacrifice, there's no killing a god or getting the blood of something else in order to create this life. It is just a pure act of will from God who creates from nothing. What does he create? He creates the heavens and the earth, the stars, the moon, the galaxies. He creates the earth. He separates the water from the land. He creates the creatures and all things that live upon it. And ultimately, we read, he creates human beings, those who are made in his image, those who are unique amongst all of creation. And what does he say after each creative act? God looks at it and he says, it's good. Oh, look at that. It is good. God, let there be. Bam. It is good. It is good. God said, let there be. Bang. It exists. It is good. Look at that. And then on day 6, as he creates all the animals, as he creates mankind, human beings, male and female, as he creates them, he looks at them and says, wow, look at that. That is very good. That is very good. As he looks back at all that is created, that there is an order, there is a deliberateness, there is a design, there is a purpose and intent here. That there is no slavery, there's no power imbalance, there's no sacrifice here. It is all good. It's wonderful. It's a blessing. And as we move on to Genesis 2, we begin by reading the story of how God rests on the 7th day. God takes a delight in all that he has done and rests. And then we go on to read the story of how the first 2 humans, Adam and Eve, are given charge to look over the garden that God creates and designs for them, as he gives them food to eat, as he gives them work to do, so many things that he does. This is a picture, this is a story of beauty. It's nothing like the other accounts. This is unique, it's different, it's special. And I want to say from it we can gather four major themes. Four major themes as we look at how this creative narrative distinguishes itself from others. I think that's a really helpful thing. Okay, other civilizations have an account, but what makes this one stand out? Why is this one so different? What's unique about it? First major theme, that God is the one and only eternal, all-creating God. There's no multitude of gods, not pantheistic, polytheistic worshippers. Those who take the account from Genesis to be true believe there is one universal, all pre-existing God. And He gives life to all things. Second major theme, that God creates with wisdom and order. That there's no plan B. There's no compromise here as to, I know, how about we do this? Things aren't working, how about do this? From the very beginning, everything is laid out, everything works together, everything is good and wonderful. God creates with wisdom and order. Third major theme, that God created humankind as the pinnacle of His creation. I think if you read the account, there's no denying the fact that while all the other things He creates are wonderful, it is humans that captures God's imagination. It's humankind that when God comes to walk in the garden that He created, what does He do? Genesis 2 there we read that He calls out to Adam, where are you? It's Adam He comes looking for. He comes seeking after Him, entering into relationship with Him. And surely as we look at Genesis 1-2, we see this beautiful picture. Now we know that doesn't last, don't we? We know that the perfection that they had there comes to an end. Sin enters. The relational connection between God and humanity is broken. God has to remove them from the garden, and this perfect, wonderful life that they had is no more. And the rest of the Bible is really God's love story to humanity, describing gradually, bit by bit, a slow revelation of how God is planning to restore what was lost, to bring them back to the garden, to bring them back into perfect relationship where all things are good. That's the story of the Bible, and it's all about us and our relationship. We're the pinnacle. We are made in God's image. The fourth major theme, God knows how things work best. God knows how things work best. That there is no one else. He designed it. He created it. He was there when He saw it all working perfectly. He was there when it was wonderful, where nothing was broken, where everybody experienced life to its fullest. He's seen that. He designed it. He knows what it takes. He put it together. And when it fell apart and broke, who do you think is the one who is able to put it back together? Who's the one who's able to help humanity, to instruct them, to find their way, to find that good, perfect life again? Surely it has to be God. It has to be. And you know, there's a word that God uses for all of this. There's a word God uses for it. And this word is holiness. That if we would pursue holiness, to be set apart, to be like God, then we will have all that we need. We will be ticking all the right boxes of how we're meant to function, that we will find the life that God intended us to have. And so I want to make a proposition to you. I'm going to propose something to you, and I want to see, just at this point, whether you agree with it or not. The proposal is this: do you believe that God knows the best way for you to live a full and complete life? Do you believe that God knows the best way for you to live a full and complete life? If the answer to that question is yes, then we need to turn to the scriptures and to look at what God has to say about these things. As I've been just praying, and I've had a lot of time to pray as I've been stuck in bed unwell for a couple of months now, on and off, I have been praying for us and praying for you as part of Mosaic. I've been praying and asking God, what is it you would speak to us? What do we need to be hearing? What's the next thing? And not wanting to jump, I don't know if you feel it sometimes. You jump from one sermon to the next, and you jump from a devotional or something that comes into your email, and we're bombarded with constant messages of things we can do and things we need to focus on. It can be all too much. But what's that next thing we need to just sit in? We need to sit in for a while and just make sure we get it. That we don't move on too quick to the next thing, that we just can nail it. What is that thing? And I had an image that came to mind. It's the image of a tightrope walker. Now, I don't know what you think of when you think of a tightrope walker. I think of sort of those I think the 40s, black and white images anyway, of sort of a tightrope being strung between two skyscrapers, with the guy on the wire with the big balancing pole that they hold. That's sort of the image I have. And so this tightrope walker, what on earth does that have to do with us? Well, life can be like walking that tightrope at times, can't it? Life can be really difficult, it can be hard. There's lots of things that want to knock us off, and winds and rocking of the rope, and there's lots of ways that we can be disrupted and we can lose balance in life. And yet, for the tightrope walker, that's a life or death thing. And so as they are walking, finding balance, how do they help find balance? Well, the thing besides training and experience, it's that pole. There's a reason why they hold that pole. That pole does two things. It first enables them to reduce their rotational inertia. So if you can imagine, if I had a wire here and I tried to place something on it, it's very prone to rotating around the wire, to rotating either around it. It can rotate to the left or the right, basically falling off. It's very difficult to stay on it. And so you want to try and reduce your rotational inertia. You want to try and say so that it stays, it's inert, it doesn't move. And so that pole, what it does, it extends, it distributes the weight wider. Have a look at this image. This is an image of a weightlifter. The guy on the left, he has difficulty rotating that dumbbell, the barbell, doesn't he? Because the weight's on the end, the weight's distributed wide, and to lift that up from the centre is really hard. But the image on the right, you can see when the weight's centred more with the nothing but bar, it's really easy. You can imagine that balancing pole that they hold on to distributes the weight out to the edges, and so it's much harder and so they can hold on to this bar as a bit of stability. The second thing the bar does is it lowers the centre of gravity, and so if they hold it below, most human beings have a centre of gravity around their belly button, navel area. If they hold the pole down lower, then all that extra weight, now you won't be able to see this on the camera, but if I was to squat down, spread my legs and squat down, and you tried to push me over, that'd be, you could probably do it, but it'd be hard. But if I stood up here with my legs together, up high, and you push me from the shoulders, I can't stop you from pushing me over. So a tightrope walker will grab hold of that balancing pole to help keep them balanced. What is it that we grab hold of to help keep us balanced? What do we reach for when life gets out of balance, when we start to wobble, when things don't go well? We're in the middle of COVID at the moment, and I know for some of us, COVID has not really had a major impact, but for some of us, it's been significant. What do we reach for to keep balanced? There's lots of different things that humans reach for. Hobbies. For some of us, we try to escape. Some of us have things that we're not happy we reach for. We have some things we might even say we're maybe a little addicted to. Could be food, could be sex, could be drugs. Some of us reach out to friends, to relationships, to those closest to us. We want affirmation. We need others' input. We need on our own we can't do it. We need others' help. For some, we look to work and success, which is driven. I want to just succeed, give myself to work and accomplishing, ticking off goals, keep on moving on. Sometimes we grab hold of the past. We just try and remember the good old days, or who we used to be, or what we used to have. For some of us, it's philosophy. We just need to think clearly. We might mindfulness and meditation. That's the way I'm going to get through this. For others, it is religion. For some, it's exercise. It's fitness. It's being active. It's getting outdoors. There's lots of ways we grab onto things to try and find balance. But we were created by God, designed by Him, and put into a perfect world. He knows how to give us the kind of life. He knows how we can find balance. And do you believe that God tries to help us in this? I asked before, do you believe God knows what's best for us? Do you believe God knows the best way for us to live that fulfilled, complete life? And I hope your answer to that question was yes. But there's a further question, isn't there? It's not just good enough to say, yes, I believe. Do you put it into practice? Are you willing to put your money where your mouth is? There was a story I heard a long time ago about a tightrope walker in New York City between two high-rises, and he did this magnificent feat where he would go out with not a balancing pole, but with a wheelbarrow. And he would load the wheelbarrow up with bricks, and he would walk out, and before he went out, he would say, "Hey, everybody, do you believe I can walk out with this wheelbarrow and return?" And everybody, to begin with, would say, some yeses, some nos. And so he would go out, and then he'd walk back with it and go, yeah, and they'd all clap and cheer and go, yeah, that's amazing. And then he'd put more bricks in. Do you believe I can get out there? And more people like, yeah. And this would happen 2 or 3 times until it got to the point where there were so many bricks in the wheelbarrow that it was about the weight of a normal human being. So then he took out all the bricks, and by this point everyone's going, of course you can do it. Yeah, we believe it. Until he then said, okay, I'm going to remove the bricks now. Now he said, I'd like to ask for a volunteer. Who believes that I can go out there with a wheelbarrow and back? And they all go, yeah. He goes, I'd like to have a volunteer who's willing to get in the wheelbarrow and go with me. And do you think anyone put up their hand? No, there was silence. Come on. You all said a minute ago you believed I could do this. Who's willing to put their money where their mouth is? Who's willing to jump in the wheelbarrow? Now, I don't know if this part of the story is true or not, but apparently there was a little old lady who said, yep, I'll do it. Apparently it was his mum who got in the wheelbarrow, went out and came back with him. That's nice, isn't it? Mum always believes in you. But if we believe God knows what's best for us, if we believe God has left instructions for us about how to live a good life, are we willing to not just say, yeah, I think God knows best? Are we actually willing to do what is best? And so as we come into the next few weeks looking at this series of how to find balance in our life, my prayer and hope is that we are willing to trust God. We are willing to follow Him, follow His instructions, to learn from Him, that we might be able to find the kind of life that He wants for us all.